Most of the innovators of the future are the ones who you don't know somewhere in a basement right now because they're doing it in a democratized or decentralized way. That's where innovation comes.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
So, Eric, last week we were talking about Web 3.0 and what that means and the difference between Web 1 and 2 and this new era that we are entering. And we briefly started talking about, we also talked pretty in depth about the video game side of it all and what that means, and had some pretty solid Mario comparisons and casino comparisons to help Mike get an understanding of what's happening here and myself. So this week I wanted to ask you about AR and kind of what you see happening in the AR space within the metaverse, and as well as, I guess it's probably separate too, right? Because like NFTs are being created right now for the metaverse because people need to hang artwork in their houses that they buy in the metaverse.
Yeah, and to some degree, that's just even one section too. So like, understand then, so, you know, we're early in this phase of everything, and there's oftentimes only an understanding of like what is the most commonly talked about or what is mainstream. So, you know, Beeple's NFT is the most commonly talked about NFT from a mainstream standpoint, and that was artwork, right? And that was art that sold for $69 million, and then recently is sold individual pieces for $6 million and $20 million. And so that was art. And digital art is no different than physical art in the sense that really what it is it's an investment in social signaling. It's an investment in an artist, and that other people will want it in the future at a higher price than what you pay for it. Understand that you're buying art for one of two reasons. You enjoy it and you want to hang it in your house so you can look at it, or you're speculating that it will go up in the future because someone else will want original artwork from that particular artist. And so Beeple is the most common like NFT, commonly talked about NFT. Now then there's a whole new subset of NFTs that are not art related. So Nike, for instance, just I think put 20 plus patents, which is stupid, inside of the digital creation space, because patents, in my opinion, will be worthless inside of Web3 because no one will want them or care about them. Because again, that implies that there's an intermediary third party trying to enforce physical rules and laws inside of a digital democratized community. I just don't see how that sticks at scale, but possibly. So Nike is now saying that they're going to have digital shoe creations that you can own inside of a metaverse as an NFT. So an NFT is essentially what's going to give you digital ownership and property rights. So think about buying Jordans for your Wii bowler and owning them. Okay. So that means that if Nike, when they release a set of Jumpmans, right, they have a fixed supply of every release of desirable shoes that they put out. And therefore the price of them goes up because there's a fixed supply of physical Nike shoes. A pair of Yeezys or whatever might go for $600, $2,000, whatever. Now take that digitally, make them limited and scarce, and give someone ownership of it digitally. That's where the NFT part comes into play. NFT is the equivalent of like a receipt for a digital ownership or digital property rights.
Got it.
And now you can think about everything that you can put digitally inside of your life that you would want an ownership record of. So songs, artwork, video, shoes, clothes, houses, land, yachts, all of those things become NFTs if you want to own them. Someone then has to record that you're the rightful owner of that digital property.
Okay.
And then it can resell if you choose, and someone wants to pay more money for it, they can sell for more money.
And there's a lot of people on Fiverr that I saw are making a lot of money designing NFTs for people.
Yeah.
So I saw, when I was doing some homework on this, I saw that you could spend $100 and get a NFT made of a character. It can range from like a raccoon that has a bunch of goofy outfits, or it could be a lion, or it could be a bear. It could be literally anything. And then for $450, they'll give you like 10,000 of these characters of the same character. I think it was 10,000. Is it either 1,000 or 10,000?
Yeah, probably.
I'll fact check myself here in a second.
Probably.
But but they're saying that's then once you have that, then it's on you then to like hype up that NFT.
Correct.
So then you could sell that limited amount of them.
Yeah.
In the event that they're worth something.
Yeah.
After giving that NFT a social signal.
Yep, that's right. So think about it as in, there's and I'm gonna butcher this, but there's a fascinating example of where someone went on to eBay and bought a bunch. It was someone who was like a writer for a living, bought a bunch of items on eBay, and then got them delivered, of course, and then went back onto eBay, put them all back up for sale, but wrote stories and narratives about the items, and ended up getting like tens of multiples more money for each individual item because of the story that was told about each individual item of junk that they bought on eBay. Like maybe it was like a thimble, bought for like $1, and then wrote this like ridiculous story about this particular thimble in order to sell it for maybe $100 or whatever. And so if you think about what you're talking about, Tyler, which is the idea that basically you could go and have artwork created, have the artwork digitally then put onto a blockchain, so that it gave you digital property rights of it. Then you would go and sell it on a art platform like OpenSea or NFTB or something. You would then, the actual value of it is going to be the story that you tell and the amount of people that you get interested in the product and the amount of like influence that you have or the people interested in your artwork have.
Okay, so you're telling me the Fiverr will create 1,000 avatars.
I'll tell you what, I could do this.
And then I can like get them dope, get them hype, and then I can then sell them to someone else.
Yes.
And there's different types of these avatars too, because there's like pixelated ones, and then there's like not pixelated ones, because some of them are used in certain metaverses, right?
It depends. Okay, so then there's remember, so there's metaverse, there's NFTs that are things that you own that you are going to go take into a metaverse game, a metaverse world that you want to use to like social signal inside of a social community. So let me give you the perspective. So if you think about, there's the overlay on your profile picture on Facebook that says that you got vaccinated, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now imagine if that were an NFT. You could buy the vaccinated overlay that you put on your Facebook profile picture that you then use to really what it is. Think about it is when someone takes their profile picture and they put that vaccine logo over their profile picture, they're social signaling
that I got vaccinated.
They got vaccinated.
Right. Yeah.
So we were already doing
that's a
this.
value.
That is a value inside of a social peacocking society that we all do. Some people choose to believe that has currency, or because they're signaling that's part of their identity. Okay. And so now imagine that. So you understand then that if you could pay for that, let's say that you bought that overlay and that money right now it would have to go to Zuckerberg, right? Or it'd have to go to Facebook if you had to pay for it.
But it would go to the person that has it. The overlay.
In a metaverse, that's right. It would be whomever created it. Whoever created this vaccine overlay would be the one who got paid initially for it. Now, if there was a fixed supply of those I'm vaccinated overlays, then they would go up in price because people who wanted the social signal that they were vaccinated would pay money to buy that on the open market. that's similar to like how NFTs work. So so
you know how I feel?
Yeah.
I feel like Katie Couric in the 90s.
Yeah, right? That is the best video
she was
ever.
trying to explain the internet?
Yes.
That little mark with the A and then the ring around it.
At.
See, that's what I said. Katie said she thought it was about.
Yeah. Oh.
But I'd never heard
Or
it.
around
I'd never
or
heard it
about.
said. I'd always
That's
seen the
right.
mark, but never heard
Yeah.
it said. And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC.
That little,
so good.
the little, at, that little. I think they pronounce that as at.
It is the best, dude.
I'll find it.
So you've got the like social NFTs that I'm going to consider to be like the vaccine like overlay.
Okay.
There are some things that those are the NFTs that you would take into a metaverse. Because remember, the metaverse is going to be like a social network. It's a community of people engaging inside of one platform socially. Like there was a concert, for instance, a couple weeks ago in Decentraland that people could go to if they had their avatar inside of Decentraland.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so now what you're talking about, Tyler, is you go onto Fiverr and have art made
Yep.
that can sell, and that artwork is
I'm sorry.
you
I'm
can
confused.
use art. No, that's okay. Someone else is going to do the same thing. So, so artwork serves as you can use it you can use it to social signal a lot of different ways. No different than a Rolex, no different than a luxury vehicle. When someone has a Facebook profile picture of them standing in front of their Lamborghini wearing a Rolex, what they're really doing is social signaling.
Yes.
They're trying to flex their own what they think will cause them to be elevated in the hierarchy of life.
That's their
right?
value. That's how
right.
they perceive
That's
yeah.
that's how they're projecting their identity with the desire to be more with the goal of being more desirable and going up the social hierarchy. So art is basically a social flex. The same way that a Rolex is, the same way that a Lambo is, the same way that anything else is that people will choose to attach their identity to. So you could use an NFT of a Bored Ape, for instance, as your profile picture. That would be you socially flexing that you have spent $60,000 on a piece of digital artwork.
Got it.
So that's the Fiverr version of what you're talking about, is the ability to create art that is effectively has value in social signaling. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Hopefully. Okay. So then there's all sorts of different variations of what's valuable.
Yeah.
From Bored Apes to CryptoPunks to CryptoKitties to Noundles to a bunch of different
Because they
versions.
can all end up becoming their own coin, right?
Well,
or like within the, I guess
they can be sold
They
can be sold because they're art, and
That's
art
right,
is
you're
sold because people want to own it.
I think that's the problem. I think the problem is there's a gap in the language, and so once it's clearly like that conversation is had and that is being bridged, you get more clarity. But the problem is you still don't know what it could become. Like, I think we're at the very beginning of something that is crazy, because I brought my virtual reality headset. What technology do you like? You're talking like these headsets, and I think that's going to go into glasses, and then that's going to go into contacts. What does that look like?
Yeah. So right now, VR is somewhat, obviously it's a massive change from the standard viewing experience or the standard social experience that we have now. However, I think that we'll start to see AR and VR and it become much more common now. I know that recently Zuckerberg indicated that it's probably closer to like another 7-ish years before it starts to be more like usable and wearable from a like. It's like wearing a VR headset right now is a little cumbersome.
Yeah.
If you were going to wear it all day, I think we're probably 2 decades out from wearing contacts that have AR capacity on them, because there still are some like physical limitations with contacts, in that they would need batteries, or they'll need to solve the challenge of figuring out how to get power to a set of contact lenses and have it run long enough to where, you know, they don't necessarily need to be changed all the time. And then also not causing damage to, you know, your physical eye itself. But when you start to see AR or VR contacts is when it's going to be ridiculously next level, because now you then imagine that if you were driving, you could project images onto the roadway itself, or you could project images onto buildings.
Okay.
You could.
So we're not talking like the Matrix where we're all laying in like some sludge.
Not yet.
Probably
with VR
not.
glasses on,
Probably
walking around.
not.
The way I'm seeing, I just looked up like the VR not VR, AR glasses, and Lenovo has some out right now for $1,500. And based off just like the quick scroll of pictures that I've got, they just look like sunglasses, but you can take the like shades off. But what they end up like, the pictures that I'm seeing, and I'll throw these up on the screen if you're watching, but is basically, it's like, imagine if you were at a computer, you could almost have your multiple displays.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, kind of like when you're watching the Terminator and you see the Terminator.
Yes. You have multiple views. Remember, science fiction actually is always a precursor to the future.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it is unfortunate because there are some things, but that's also how space travel worked, by the way. Yeah. Remember that there was a point in time when the Mayans were quite literally logging and tracking the lunar cycles, and they were mapping the stars, and that's how they made the calendar.
Yeah.
And so it took the Mayans to envision that there had to be something bigger from a solar system standpoint.
Yeah.
To then understand that there was also the ability to do space travel.
Yeah.
But all of that started first with mapping out the like solar cycle and the solar system and the lunar cycle, and building a calendar around it.
Yeah.
And then being curious about what it's like to actually go to the moon and to go to space. And all of that curiosity and imagination is what causes people to figure out how to innovate, to create the future-based curiosity.
I told Amy the other day, I feel like we're living in the future.
We are, because it was the future.
Yeah.
When we were children, it was the future.
Yeah.
This is the interesting thing about the idea, you know, like if we include one tiny little bit of real estate in this, Gary Keller has been talking about the fourth industrial revolution to those of us within KW for what seems like eternity. And yet it's only been almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And a lot has changed. Now, it has not really impacted real estate yet in the most profound way. However, there is a lot of advance in computing and computing power, because remember, Moore's law tells us that computing power doubles, roughly every 4 years, and so we're likely going to see,
digital real estate, people buying and selling real estate.
Yeah,
and so I don't even think our minds even understand that yet.
They don't. And so, because one of the challenges is we don't know the time frame on it, right? Is that one thing? If you watch Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or other people who are hyping technology innovation, typically what they're doing is they're going to oversell the timeline.
Right.
You know, it wasn't long ago that Elon Musk was talking about how we would have self-driving cars. Well, he missed that deadline.
Yeah.
However,
we're supposed to have them cyber trucks by now.
That's right. And so they're always missing the deadline on when it's going to happen, because you can't do a full-fledged shut-off of everything. Yeah. We couldn't switch over to an all-electric grid today if we wanted to.
Right.
There's too much of the legacy system already built on the rails of oil to be able to convert overnight to electricity if we wanted to.
Right.
And so, despite the fact that there's a bunch of hyperbole around the timeline, the timeline forces innovation,
right?
Because it forces the
Target.
constraint.
That's the target. Like, we're going to hit. If we don't hit it, that's fine. But at least this is what we're going to shoot for.
Yep. And so because of that, we know that there are some laws of physics even included. Like I talked about the idea of Moore's law, right? Is that like there are some physics even included in the scaling of digital innovation and growth, is because there has to be an increase in the number of like in transistors that are included into a circuit even. Mm-hmm. There are some physics related requirements that have to be innovated in order to make these things happen. And so that's why I'm thinking that we're probably 2 decades at least for AR contacts. There are probably a lot of things that are wild that we won't see obviously in our lifetime.
Yeah.
However, the AR will be one of the most fascinating ones, I think.
I think by what I was just looking up too, I saw Apple is supposed to be releasing, we'll see, their version of AR glasses in 2023, where it's basically going to take your notifications and put them right in front of you.
Yeah,
instead of having an Apple Watch, you're going to have your glasses, and
that I'm sure it's going to have a lot of other little
respond to text message, and you'll have a microphone in your ear or something like that.
I'm not wholly sold on Apple, and I say that only because
because you have a Droid.
Because Tim Cook is Tim Cook is a supply chain like demigod, not an innovator. And so I'm looking at a lot of other companies to do innovation. In fact, I'm more willing to bet that that the actual innovators of the next 2 decades are the names that we don't know at all, and that's how it always goes. Because
you never knew Zuckerberg, or you never knew Elon Musk. I mean, 15 years ago.
That's right. Yep. and when I think
it was Jobs before that.
Vitalik Buterin was 21 years old when he created Ethereum. Yeah. Most of the innovators of the future are the ones who you don't know somewhere in a basement right now, because they're doing it in a democratized or decentralized way. That's where innovation comes. Wikipedia beat Encarta because it was democratized.
Right.
It was done as a passion project, not as a corporate initiative.
Yeah.
And so most of the innovation, I believe, in Web 3.0 will come as a byproduct of innovation, which is almost always a forced innovation because of constraint. Facebook can't innovate and hasn't innovated. They've only acquired. Then they've done no innovation after they acquire something. They have to steal. Because innovation doesn't happen in large corporations. Yeah. Innovation happens in startups due to forced constraint.
Right.
They touch that on the creator's dilemma.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, what got you there? Like, what got you there got you huge. And then how do you let that go?
That's right. That's right. And so we were looking at that. So when we look at AR, that's where the innovation will happen, is happening in a garage somewhere, in a basement somewhere, that most corporations are not actually going to be the ones innovating. Web 3.0 will give people the ability to not need corporations to do that. It'll give democracy back to the people. Like right now, like if you think about Ethereum, for instance, the second largest blockchain technology in the world is owned by the community. Bitcoin owned by the community. It's $1 trillion+ asset. It will be the size of Apple within 4 years or larger, and no one will exclusively own it.
Yeah,
and that will be the direction of the future. Is that these communities will be owned by the community.
I can see that.
That is going to be a great prediction to place in 4 years from now.
Oh, the DAOs will become the new LLC, or the new government, so to speak. Is that with DAOs and with blockchain, you can actually democratize government, or you could actually democratize corporations. Just look, last week someone that a group of people community crowdfunded to purchase the Constitution. They raised $43 million.
They bought the Constitution.
No, they didn't buy it. Unfortunately, Ken Griffin came along with the best troll of all time, and paid more for the Constitution. However,
a bunch of people came together. I read that in the news. So where does one? They said they were going to keep it at a museum.
They were going to put it into an art museum. Yeah, but it was going to be owned by the people. Anyone who chose to donate money would have had a ownership share in the Constitution.
That is awesome, man.
That is where we're headed.
That's the future, bro. That's where we're going.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to be, actually.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, what it's really saying is that the community owns items of value instead of
the government.
That's right. Or instead of large heads of state, or instead of oligopolies, or instead
It's
of
corruptible.
That's
Like
right.
that's the thing. That's what we've been experiencing.
That's right.
Is
You don't
that
want Ken
corruption.
Griffin to be the owner of the Constitution when you could have had the Constitution owned by the people who wanted to own it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's a new world. All right. We'll see you next week.